introduction to most of you. She was very actively involved in saving the old Elizabeth Garrett Anderson Hospital at the end of the 1970s. She's now a key activist in the PCS in central London and has been a driving force behind attempts to develop unity between public sector unions and service users in the borough. Candy, who's going to be speaking on behalf of Keep Our NHS Public. Candy.
Thank you, and I don't know how the condemned government can say this budget is fair when they're going to cut billions from public services, but they're also going to cut corporation tax. That means cutting profits for the rich and expecting the poorest in our society to pay the price. And what are we paying the price for? Did we create this mess? No. Is this a mess created by the health service or by public services? No. No, we know it's a mess that's created by the bankers and by their system. And I think that today's protest, and by the way, according to the Right to Work campaign, there have been at least 35 protests like this up and down the country, outside town halls, outside schools and hospitals. I know that at lunchtime today there were over 50 people outside Euston Tower where the tax collectors said, don't cut our jobs, give us the power to get the tax back from the rich, because that's what we should be doing, taxing the rich. And when they say they're going to cut our pay, I don't know how. I think there were 23 millionaires in the cabinet. It's gone down to 22 now that one of them's already had to resign. But when they cut their pay by 5%, it's just like them cutting their pocket money. Well, it's not like that for those of us who work in the public service. And I'd just like to say there's one other issue that we face, and that this government is absolutely pushing, although there wasn't an announcement about it today, and that is privatisation. Because as they cut, they try and replace services with private services. And in the NHS, they want 95% of the NHS budget to no longer be directly managed, but instead to be managed by GPs who will largely work with private companies, American multinationals, deciding how to spend the NHS's money. It is truly frightening what is being proposed. And as a first step, the Primary Care Trust in Camden and other North London boroughs have banned 25 operations and say that these will no longer be available on the NHS. And in Camden Keep Our NHS Public, we've said that we're not going to put up with that and that we have to fight that. I would say that we can celebrate a couple of things today, and that is the victories that we've had in this area, because we did stop the Whittington casualty from closing. And I think we have to look at how we did that. We did that because we got a coalition that involved all political parties, hospital workers, trade unions, tenants and residents, and we made a stand and fought together. And we have another victory that we can celebrate, that we have stopped the sell-off of council housing in this borough in Camden. And we achieved that because we had a coalition of tenants and trade unionists and political parties, so that it was top of the Labour Council's manifesto when they were elected. And I think we have to say, if we're going to fight the scale of these cuts, then we have to make sure we're standing outside the town hall today, but we're not fighting the town hall, we're fighting the government. And actually we want the councillors out here with us saying, if we are going to resist the attacks on people in Camden and the poorest in Camden, then we have no choice. We have to unite everybody who cares about public invite to the Tory conference, which is meeting in Birmingham in October, and I think we should make a date in our diaries now that we need the TUC to call a national demonstration so that we do see the kind of resistance that we need.
Moment on Hugo Pierre, who is the co-convener for the Children's Schools and Families Directorate for UNISON. There are a number of young people just around the corner this evening who have been receiving awards from the Education Department within Children's Schools and Families to honour their academic and other achievements. Those pupils have benefited from spending on schools in Camden, spending that is now very much under threat. The government today has announced in the emergency budget a chop of 25%. That's 1/4 in real terms on education spending over the next 4 years. That has huge implications for teachers, for school support staff, but also crucially for young people who are today in primary and secondary education or about to enter it. Right. Now, as Candy referred to the Tory Party conference, that's taking place in Birmingham. There has been a demonstration called for the 3rd of October. But shortly before that, there is a European TUC Day of Action, which our trade union, UNISON, is now committed to supporting with a national demonstration in London and most probably one in Glasgow as well. The ETUC Day of Action has been called to oppose a new age of austerity, because what we're seeing in Britain is not happening in Britain alone, nor in Greece alone, nor in Spain alone. Even prosperous Germany is now seeing swinging cuts of billions of euros on the public sector as right-wing politicians are pushing through an agenda to try and reverse the gains of the post-World War II welfare state. What is at stake is enormous over the coming period of time. I very much urge you to go back to your workplaces, go back to community organizing. No ifs, no buts, no Tory cuts. Camden Labour, hear us say. No ifs, no buts.